The story begins with Seo Rin-ha, a well-known actress noted for her exceptional beauty and talent as an actress. Many people appreciate her for her mesmerizing performances on stage and screen, where she effortlessly brings complicated characters to life. Seo Rin-ha's stardom and talent have brought her countless awards, establishing her place as a top star. Seo Rin-ha is perplexed by her new surroundings on a snowy mountain, surrounded by snow and a terrible coldness. Confusion overwhelms her as she tries to figure out why she is in this snowy wilderness, dressed in minimal clothing that provides little protection from the harsh weather. She had been planning to film a scene near a cliff just hours before. Despite her manager's suggestion that she use a body double for the dangerous scenario, the set was meticulously built up with cameras, seats, and other equipment. Seo Rin-ha had rejected the suggestion, choosing to challenge herself and earn more awards by performing the perilous stunt herself. Her excitement and anxiousness were evident, despite her best efforts to suppress it. Seo Rin-ha took a long breath to relax herself and comforted herself that all necessary safety procedures had been taken. However, an unexpected burst of wind shattered everything in an instant. The high wind abruptly dislodged a safety device, forcing Seo Rin-ha to lose her balance and fall from the cliff. She reached out for her manager's hand, who desperately cried in vain. However, it was too late. As she plunged into the unfathomable depths, Seo Rin-ha's fate appeared inevitable. She is surprised to find herself in a forest upon landing, as opposed to being submerged in the water following the cliff fall. The lack of trees in her targeted landing spot confuses her even more. Furthermore, despite the fact that it is summer, the raw, biting wind penetrates her thin clothes, exacerbating her agony. Despite the pain, Seo Rin-ha had the courage to elevate her body and survey her surroundings. She sat up and discovered her physical state was better than she had expected. She was startled to hear approaching footsteps, which became louder with each passing second. Seo Rin-ha quickly turned her attention to the sound, only to be taken aback by what she saw. The noise was not made by a person, but by a monster creature the size of a building. It had the appearance of both a crocodile and a dragon, and its body was covered in split skin. The sharp claws on its hoofed feet sprang menacingly at Seo Rin-ha, confusing and startling her. Seo Rin-ha, gasping for air, instinctively attempted to avoid the creature's attack, but her efforts were in vain. The creature, who was stronger and faster, quickly closed the gap between them, rendering her vulnerable. A burst of wind, however, blew through the entire area in a flash of white light. Instead of the scorching agony of the monster's claws, she heard the dreadful sound of leather ripping apart, which opened her eyes wide in surprise. Seo Rin-ha was greeted by a night sky filled with 3 brilliant moons. A sharp silver split slashed across the dark blue expanse, and it was in this bizarre setting that she observed the creature being struck down. Grotesque screams echoed through the air as the unknown man in front of her, his cloak flowing in the wind, brandished a combination of swords that shimmered in the moonlight, reducing the creature to a shredded heap of flesh. Seo Rin-ha couldn't shake the feeling that the man in front of her wasn't an actor. His appearance exuded strength, and his defeat of the huge thing proved that this was no show. Seo Rin-ha was stunned speechless as he cautiously approached her, astonished by the absurd circumstance she had found herself in. Seo Rin-ha fought the shock that struck her, struggling to elevate her shaking body. Her legs moved closer, and the silver-haired man opened his mouth to speak. Seo Rin-ha, on the other hand, couldn't understand a single thing he said. The man kept talking, but his words were incomprehensible to her. An uneasy feeling began to take hold of her. She had heard stories of dimensional changes, but she never imagined they might apply to her. Despite having traversed the world for her job, the language the man spoke was completely foreign to her. Seo Rin-ha felt a shudder run down his spine. The location and weather were unlike anything she had ever seen before, and the presence of the beast and the enigmatic man just added to her skepticism. She found it tough to accept, dimension shift or not. Furthermore, the man's appearance was completely distinct. His white, moon-like skin, grayish hair, and enigmatic eyes could not be imitated with makeup or contact lenses. Such incidents, Seo Rin-ha reasoned, could only happen in novels and movies. This confirmed her notion that she had reached another planet, prompting goosebumps to appear on her forearms and neck. The man extended his hand to her while she looked at her situation. Despite the fact that he had saved her life, Seo Rin-ha couldn't help but be suspicious of his motives. After a brief pause, she thought it was better to listen to him silently. She extended her hand to him. The man, much to her astonishment, took a metal bracelet from his pocket and placed it on Seo Rinha's wrist. The thin metal bracelet cinched around her forearm. She looked down at her wrist, puzzled, and shouted, "Wow, what is this?" Her words stumbled out in the other tongue. When she returned her gaze to the man, his expression was amused. "Seo Rin," he repeated his remarks, gradually gaining a comprehension of the language he spoke. The translation technology appeared to be working, allowing her to understand every word he spoke. Seo Rin-ha regained her composure after this discovery. She recognized she had passed over to another reality when she heard the man's chilly voice. She wondered whether there were any instruments to help with interpretation. Given the circumstances, she inquired, "Where are we?" with a mix of perplexity and interest. "What exactly am I?" Instead of delivering clear answers, the man's eyes went to Seo Rin-ha, and he presented a question of his own. "Do you have any idea where this is?" he asked. And Seo Rin-ha couldn't help but say no. The man went on, "And I believe you can answer your second question." Given the circumstances, Seo Rin-ha saw the folly of her inquiry. "I suppose so," she said, realizing that she too was a person from another world. The man's collected and indifferent appearance, as well as his careless act of putting the interpreter on her wrist, revealed that he was experienced with such spatial transitions. Seo Rin-ha couldn't help but grumble at the man's demeanor. She understood she had to stick close to him until she could assure her safety, as the guy started to pick up the remains of the defeated monster, seemingly forgetting Seo Rin-ha's presence. She approached him with a kind tone and an actress's grin he couldn't refuse. "So, are you a knight or a monster fighter?" she inquired, attempting to learn more about her new surroundings. The man laughed coldly, lowering the temperature even further. Seo Rin-ha couldn't help but be disturbed by his laughter. She began to equate the man's characteristics with those of a northern duke as an enthusiastic reader of romance and fantasy literature. A cold expression devoid of kindness, a terrifying appearance, combat abilities capable of slaying monsters with a single strike, and general rudeness toward people of all backgrounds, these were typical features of a male character in the genre she adored. To her surprise, the guy revealed himself to be Calcion Lenbird, the Lenbird family's leader, the Master of the North, and the Duke of the Ark. Seo Rin-ha was astounded by how precise her intuition had been. She introduced herself as Selena, adopting a different name to avoid being too noticeable and maybe having pronunciation issues. Selena smiled and extended her hand, as if they were meeting for the first time. She was unsure of the etiquette in this new environment and wondered if she should be particularly nice because he was a duke. However, before she could make a decision, Calcion grasped her hand and kissed her briefly. Selena was stunned, her mouth agape in surprise. Although this was a normal gesture, it was surprising from someone like the Northern Duke, who looked more competent at cutting things than engaged in formalities. The welcome was brief and stiff, merely a formality. Calcion raised his head and smiled, making Selena blush at the unusual display from the normally cold Duke. She noticed she was still a little dizzy from the previous experiences. Her greeting was meant to be a handshake, as she would do at award ceremonies or other similar events. Even the welcome seemed to change between universes. "It appears you are a commoner, yet you have a noble soul," Calcion said, seeing Selena's clothes, which resembled that of a tragic heroine who had fallen into poverty. Selena explained that there was no distinction or hierarchy in the world she originated from. They were all treated equally by the people. Calcion appeared unhappy and at a loss for words in reaction to her statement. "Did you think I'd be an aristocrat? That way you'd be more valuable to me," he wondered, sending a chill down Selena's spine. She had a feeling she was about to find out why she had been rescued and what would happen if she proved useless. Calcion's face was filled with dread, sending shivers down Selena's spine. She didn't get a chance to appreciate it. "If you wish to survive this mountain, you must demonstrate your worth. If not, you are free to go your own path," Calcion threatened, underlining the danger of the monster-infested mountain. Selena realized she was in a dangerous location where death may strike unexpectedly, and without notice if Calcion wasn't nearby to protect her. Selena couldn't help but think of Calcion as a cold and callous duke, but she knew better than to betray her feelings. She had no choice but to accept Calcian's offer, knowing she needed to survive and escape this dangerous place. In an effort of proving her worth, Selena treated the situation as if she were addressing a public audience, prioritizing survival over all else. Calcian, to her surprise, expressed interest when she explained her acting talent. Selena stated that she may become a world-class actress capable of playing a variety of roles. Calcian's curiosity was awakened, and he asked her to display her acting skills. He folded his arms and looked at Selena with a serious expression, signaling that she should play a villainess. Although Selena expected more answers, Calcian kept mute, his eyes subtly warning her with severe consequences if she did not obey. Selena stepped into character, calmly and without panic, abandoning her earlier attitude of despair. She performed her lines with her lips wide open and her eyes filled with enthusiasm, defying Calcian's authority and refusing to listen to him simply because he had saved her. Calcian's reaction was unexpected, having been caught off guard by Selena's acting. Something stabbed Selena's gut, and she wondered if Calcian would grin when she accepted her performance. Fortunately, he did not disappoint, and Selena felt relieved as her heart returned to normal size. Her mouth was no longer rigid, and she emitted a more sinister atmosphere befitting an opponent. Selena was thrilled at the prospect of her acting skills still being helpful in this new environment and possibly even saving her life. Calcian wasted no time in explaining that if she could play a villainess successfully, she would be ready for the part of pretending to be his beloved. He did warn her, however, that she might receive several death threats. Selena struggled with the enormous scenario, dumbfounded and at a loss for words. Masquerading as Calcian's lover seemed petty in comparison to the approaching possibility of murder. She was already trying to survive in this dangerous environment, and now she'd be put in much more danger. Selena realized, after connecting her dots, that Calcian must have enemies and trust no one. She questioned him, desperate for answers, what she would gain from taking on this position. Selena was adamant that she would not do jobs for free, no matter how afraid or disadvantaged she was. This was her personal motto. Calcian, on the other hand, casually indicated that the price of her life would be the only payment she would receive. Selena's face was swollen, and she sought to persuade him that she deserved to be rewarded for her devotion and cooperation. In exchange, Calcian offered Selena the luxury of living in a castle where all of her desires would be met, with maids attending to her every need. As Calcian spoke, Selena's eyes filled with relief, giving her a ray of hope that she might be able to return to her previous world. Selena was taken aback by Calcian's ultimate reward. She had never considered such a thing. Her heart was racing with excitement. The territory of the Lenbirds was located in the perilous and monster-infested northern area, beyond which only a powerful sorcerer could cross dimensions. Selena couldn't ignore this motivation. It gave her hope in a world where she had career, memories, friends, or family. Despite the hazards, Selena accepted the contract provided by Duke Calcian. Calcian smiled as she agreed. This would be a two-person operation, the first time he had ventured into an operation on his own. They climbed down the mountain together and arrived at the city walls. The knights waited in front of the enormous wall, their eyes widening as Duke Calcian approached with a short damsel in tow. Confusion covered their expressions as they sought to figure out how someone could have gotten past the barriers created to keep the mountain animals away. One knight tried to free Selena from Calcian's grasp, but the Duke rejected bluntly, his distaste for showing his normally cool manner. Dion, a gray-haired knight, looked at Calcian with widening eyes. The resolute and seemingly merciless Duke was supposed to remain unaffected. Selena provided the need for a plan before they left, highlighting the value of perfection in their operation. She realized as an actress that immersing oneself in her character was essential. For a brief while, she forgot about Calcian's brutality and stated her wish for a backstory. Calcian saw the benefit of establishing a cover that would prevent people from becoming suspicious about Selena's originates from another world, although he hadn't examined this aspect of the story. They created a story about Calcian saving Selena from danger and falling in love with her stunning appearance at first sight. Selena skillfully hinted at their objectives, weaving the story into the crowd's view. Selena felt she needed to act in order for Calcian to connect the dots and comprehend their situation. Selena scratched her chin and looked at Calcian's strict face, her arm wrapped about her in the cloak as a cover for her strange outfit. When she matched his eyes, she noticed that his strict face was still the same. Selena soon realized that Calcion was emotionally firm, empty of feelings, and terrifying. Even when endeavoring to show various emotions, the Duke appeared exhausted because he had never encountered a situation like this before. To deceive others, they needed to construct a scenario in which they appeared to be deeply in love with each other. Selena presented a new tactic as they discussed their possibilities. Instead of depending on Calcion's stern emotions, she recommended that she seduce him as part of their show. It would be an elaborate scheme, a means for Calcion to become coded in his character. Selena claimed that she would go into the forest and seduce the Duke, and he accepted the proposal without much thought. Assuming the situation to be Selena aggressively pursuing him, Calcion couldn't help but agree. Selena suggested that Calcion should play the role of being immediately seduced by her, giving the story greater legitimacy and lowering suspicions. She also proposed that Calcion simply agree to anything she said, letting her lead the discussions. As others would perceive it, this would create the impression that he was deeply in love with her. Selena, on the other hand, knew that Calcion was naive about love and took matters into her own hands. She struggled over how to make him understand love, literally frustrated. Calcion was naive to her desire to nurture the profound emotion of love in him. Despite countless trials and errors, Selena believed her progress to be limited.